Let's start with something almost everyone does, and almost no one questions anymore. Food delivery. You're tired. It's late. You open the app just to look, and within seconds you're scrolling through glossy photos of burgers that somehow look better than real life. You tell yourself it's just tonight. You deserve it. Long day. And honestly, that part makes sense. But here's the thing. A $14 meal quietly becomes $25 or $28 after fees, service charges, and tip. And because it's broken into little line items, it doesn't feel like double. It just feels normal. Now do that twice a week. Let's say you're paying an extra $12 per order in fees and markup. That's $24 a week. About $100 a month, roughly $1,200 a year, and that's conservative. We're not even talking about the impulse add-ons. Dessert, extra sides, that why not soda. The dangerous part isn't the cost, it's the frictionless design. One tap, Face ID, done. No physical cash, no pause, no moment to reconsider. You're not paying for food, you're paying to avoid effort. And I get it, modern life is exhausting, but exhaustion has become a profitable business model. What would happen if, just once, you paused and asked, is this convenience worth $1,200 of my future? Not forever, just occasionally. Because small, recurring conveniences, when automated, become large financial commitments. And if dinner delivery can quietly cost you 4 figures a year, what about the bigger purchases we justify with even stronger emotions? Let's talk about cars. There's something deeply emotional about buying a new car. The smell, the clean interior, the 0 miles. It feels like progress, like adulthood, like success. And the dealership knows that. You sit in the driver's seat and suddenly your current car feels older than it actually is, even if it runs perfectly fine. But here's the quiet math. The moment you drive off the lot, the car drops in value. Thousands gone, instantly. On a $45,000 vehicle, even a 20% depreciation hit means $9,000 evaporates before your first oil change. And yet we focus on the monthly payment. That's only $650 a month. Only? That's $7,800 a year for 5 years. Nearly $40,000 of after-tax income. Now compare that to buying a reliable 4 to 5-year-old car. Someone else absorbed the biggest depreciation hit. You get the same function, same safety, same ability to get to work. But emotionally, new feels better. And that's what you're really paying for, the feeling. The question isn't, can I afford the payment? It's what is this payment replacing? Because $650 invested monthly, instead of financed, could compound into serious wealth over time. Transportation is necessary. Overpaying for identity? That's optional. And identity spending shows up again in something we rarely question anymore: streaming. Remember when streaming was the cheaper alternative? One subscription, endless shows, no cable contract. It felt rebellious. Now, you've got Netflix, Hulu, Disney, Prime, maybe Max, maybe sports add-ons. Each one doesn't feel like much. $14 here, $17 there, $9.99, another $12. Add it up. You're easily at $70 to $100 a month, over $1,000 a year, for content you probably don't even fully use. Here's what's interesting. Streaming platforms learned something about us. We hate missing out, so they fragment content. One show on one platform, another show somewhere else, sports somewhere else, and we subscribe to avoid gaps. But do you really need access to everything at once? What if you rotated them? Subscribe, binge, cancel, move on. Instead of $80 monthly, maybe $15 to $20. Same entertainment, different timing. Streaming isn't the problem. Passive subscriptions are. And this pattern, small lifestyle upgrades that quietly stack, keeps repeating, especially in food. Fast food used to be the budget move. Quick, cheap, convenient. Now, a combo meal can easily hit $13 to $15 for one person. If you eat fast food twice a week at $15 each time, that's $30 weekly, around $1,500 annually. And that's if you're conservative. For that same $15, you could cook something fresh, real ingredients, real nutrition, but cooking requires planning. And planning requires mental energy, so we pay to skip it. But here's the deeper question. Are you paying for food or paying to avoid thinking ahead? 10 extra minutes in the kitchen could mean thousands saved annually. And unlike delivery or streaming, this one affects health too. You're paying more for food that gives you less, which brings us to another more for less situation. Tech upgrades, new phone launches, slightly better camera, slightly brighter screen, same apps, and somehow your perfectly fine device suddenly feels outdated. It convinces you that incremental improvement equals necessity. But think about it. Does your life dramatically? Probably not, but the price jumps. $1,000 plus, sometimes $1,200 every 2 years. That's $500 to $600 annually just in upgrade depreciation. Multiply that across a 20-year career. You're looking at tens of thousands for slightly sharper photos. Buying 1 or 2 generations behind cuts the cost nearly in half. Same function, same apps, same life. The upgrade isn't always about utility. It's about novelty, and novelty is expensive. But emotional spending gets even stronger when we talk about life milestones, like weddings. Weddings are beautiful, but the pricing around them, emotional. Attach the word wedding to anything, and the price doubles. Same flowers, different label, same venue, higher invoice. And because it's once in a lifetime, people stop questioning the math. $30,000, $40,000, sometimes more, for one day. Now imagine investing even half of that instead, or starting marriage without financial strain. I'm not saying don't celebrate, but celebrate within reason, because long-term stability is far more romantic than a photo-perfect centerpiece. And that theme, appearance versus stability, shows up again in travel. Travel expands your mind, but luxury travel expands your credit card. Flights are more expensive. Hotels are more expensive. Experiences are packaged and priced for aspiration, and social media amplifies it. Suddenly, a normal vacation feels insufficient. But here's the quiet truth. Memories don't scale proportionally with price. A $6,000 trip doesn't create 6 times the joy of a $1,000 one. Sometimes it creates 6 times the stress. Budget travel still gives stories, still gives growth. Debt-funded travel gives lingering payments. The issue isn't travel. It's trying to match an aesthetic. And aesthetics are expensive in many forms, like buy now, pay later. Split into 4 payments. No interest. Sounds harmless. But psychologically, breaking payments into smaller pieces reduces perceived cost. A $200 purchase feels heavy. 4 $50 payments feel manageable. So you buy things you wouldn't have bought outright. And suddenly, you've stacked multiple payment plans. Not one $200 hit, 5 $50 hits. That's how lifestyle creep sneaks in. If you wouldn't pay full price today, maybe it's not worth owning today. Debt for assets can build wealth. Debt for consumption builds stress. And stress compounds, just like branding premiums. Name brands charge for familiarity, but often the ingredients are identical. Generic medication, same active compound. Store brand groceries, same supplier, but we pay double for recognition. Marketing builds trust. Trust builds loyalty. Loyalty builds overpayment. Switching to store brands across household spending could save $1,500 to $2,000 annually. That's real money. But ego resists it, because branding isn't about function. It's about identity. And identity spending is one of the strongest financial forces in 2026, which leads into subscription boxes. Subscription boxes sell anticipation, mystery, surprise, novelty. But most boxes contain items you wouldn't have chosen individually, and yet you keep paying. $30 monthly becomes $360 annually for curated randomness. The hardest part? Canceling requires effort. Inertia keeps charges alive. Check your statements. Are you paying for excitement or paying for habit? Because recurring micro expenses quietly build macro impact. And daily habits do too, like coffee. That $6 latte doesn't feel dramatic. It's routine, comforting, social. But $6 daily equals $180 monthly, over $2,000 annually. Home coffee, maybe 50 cents a cup. Now here's the key question. Does the coffee shop experience genuinely add $2,000 of value to your year? If yes, own that decision consciously. But most people never did the math. They formed the habit first, avoided the calculation second. The issue isn't coffee, it's unconscious repetition. And that brings us to the biggest upgrade of all, housing. Let's talk about something a little uncomfortable. Housing. Not rent in general, not mortgages in general. I'm talking about the quiet upgrade. The I deserve a nicer place now decision. You get a raise. Or maybe you just feel tired of your current setup. The walls feel smaller, the building feels older. Instagram starts feeding you modern kitchens with waterfall countertops and floor-to-ceiling windows. And suddenly your perfectly fine apartment feels beneath you. So you move from $1,600 a month to $2,300 because it has a gym you might use, a rooftop you'll visit twice, a package concierge that holds your Amazon boxes like they're precious artifacts. Here's the thing, that $700 difference, that's $8,400 a year. Over 5 years, that's $42,000, and that's before utilities usually go up too. Now don't get me wrong, your home matters. Where you live affects your mood, your sleep, your peace. I'm not saying live somewhere miserable just to save money, but ask yourself honestly, did your happiness increase proportionally to the cost, or did you just adapt to the upgrade and reset your baseline? Because that's what lifestyle inflation does. It convinces you the new normal is necessary, and once something becomes normal, it stops feeling expensive. It just feels standard. But standard can be extremely costly. The hardest hardest part? Housing feels justified. It's not like delivery apps or coffee. It's where I live. It feels foundational, and that's exactly why it's powerful. A slightly smaller place in a slightly less trendy area can mean the difference between living paycheck to paycheck and quietly building real flexibility. Financial freedom rarely comes from one dramatic sacrifice. It comes from resisting the upgrades that don't truly upgrade your life. So before you renew that lease or stretch for that bigger space, pause. Is this expansion or is it ego? Because once you realize how much of your financial pressure comes from invisible upgrades, you start seeing everything differently. And that awareness, that's where control begins. So here's what's interesting. None of these things are evil. Food delivery isn't evil. New cars aren't evil. Travel isn't evil. Nice apartments aren't evil. They're just expensive when chosen unconsciously. That's the real theme here. In 2026, the economy isn't designed around your financial freedom. It's designed around frictionless spending, around convenience, around emotional triggers, around making every upgrade feel necessary. And the scary part? It works. Because most of these expenses don't feel dramatic. They feel normal. They feel earned. They feel like this is just how life costs now. But when you zoom out, when you actually run the numbers, you start seeing the pattern. It's not one big catastrophic decision ruining people financially. It's 10 reasonable ones stacked together. Delivery twice a week. Streaming you barely use. Upgrading phones early. Brand premiums. Subscription creep. An apartment slightly above your real needs. Each one alone, manageable. Combined, that's $10,000. Sometimes $15,000. Sometimes $20,000 a year. And here's the quiet truth most people avoid. $20,000 invested annually changes your entire future. That's early freedom. That's options. That's leverage. But that money disappears quietly because no one pauses long enough to question it. And this isn't about deprivation. It's about intention. If you truly love luxury travel, do it intentionally. If your daily coffee ritual genuinely improves your mental health, own it consciously. If you want the bigger apartment and can comfortably afford it, choose it confidently. But choose it. Don't drift into it, because drifting is expensive. The most powerful financial move in 2026 isn't cutting everything. It's awareness. Awareness slows you down just enough to ask, is this actually improving my life or just matching my environment? Once you start asking that question regularly, something shifts. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling squeezed. You start feeling in control. And control feels better than any convenience ever will. So now I'll ask you something simple. Which one on this list hit you the hardest? That's probably where your biggest opportunity is.